So then we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant, from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation is from the documents of the Holy Hebrews of old, and also the prophets of old, giving us understandings of heaven via the prophetic, understandings of the shadow events that would come in the future related with the Torah. And then understanding those layers given by the prophets, always pointing to the very foundation where then we can understand the end of times. As it was then explained how to read the prophecies of the Torah, understanding what they meant and the purpose of the prophecies. The prophecies were not only given for the sake of the prophecies or future events. Those were always pointing the people back to the instructions. This was then the very context, the very core, the very objective, and the aim of the entire understanding of the prophetic. The prophetic would not be required if the people they were obedient, and then if they would remain secluded as per the instructions. Because in due time the Messiah would come and they would explain, as he did explain, the entire Torah. We have only 10% of his teaching, but 90% is lacking. Because a lot of these teachings, the other 90%, those are related with the cities and their duties. He explained them. He did explain, because we find the cities and then the reference of the city, and then Shaul, he pointed out, always wishing for that city yet to come from heaven. So in the other 90%, we don't have the other 90%, but we can find the information from the holy prophets. So the Messiah did explain, and he spent a great deal of time explaining what meant then the cities. He explained, he made a comparison of what the prophets they were trying to say. He explained what they went through in the past because of the lack of understanding. And he explained because they did not understand what they would do based upon what they did not understand in the past. But then the Messiah was explaining, and they would be used in the future. Because he was the Messiah, he was then Yahweh himself in person. He was the author of life. He said he was then the Aleph and the Tau, meant from Genesis to the end, he was he. He had to explain it. The entire history of the planet, the Messiah explained it. But then a lot of the records, they were lost. Try to understand, we have only portions of it, only sections of it. But because we have the Torah then intact, that's the point. We understand what the prophets did. They were pointing people back to the instructions, and then we find from Genesis to Deuteronomy, we find the Holy Torah always intact. And then the prophets give them extras as they obeyed and they returned to the instructions. Then we find in the Shilishim explaining areas of the Torah, while then Shaul was the first person after the Messiah. The Messiah had detected the shadow prophetic understandings before Shaul, and he explained them in detail what they meant. There is a lot of information lacking because of the confusion of the time. The city was not closed and secluded as he was expected to find. It was a pure confusion, and he had to get through the confusion and then going against the leaders. Yet he had to deliver the information, so then Ruach HaKodesh would come and they would continue on with the city plan. Because Yahweh wants his city in this earth. That's the whole aim. So he explained from Genesis until the end of the age in absolutely complete details. And those details were lost because they were persecuted. A lot of those holy cities, they were burned, destroyed. Thus then later became deceit, and that's we understand. We are living in deceit. Now comes the restoration period where we find then the gap where the earth would experience peace. Because the knowledge has reached a point where only the Creator can answer from then on. So we find then obviously the holy city is as per plan from the time of Moses. Then the Messiah came, or rather than having only a singular city on a desert, they would go around the world forming holy cities. And then the Gentiles would report at the gate, giving you samples what's going to be like when His kingdom come in the new earth, when it's renewed. This time is not for the renewing of the earth, it's for the renewing of the city, so we can have an understanding of the samples. And then we are preparing ourselves for the autumn feast. And then we understand, since we are during this very special time of restoration, we must do our utmost to make sure we then rebuild and do not provoke war. It is imperative for our country to do the rebuilding, because we are doing the rebuilding times. Yahweh did not only mention for His own country or His city and the cities, He meant the whole world. He said the heathen would understand His mighty works. And He gives us a clue of the nation leading trade of the end. It's China, where the nations are going to make treaties with it. So then they're going to work. But they want to work then for a period of time in peace. So we must strive for then retrieving ourselves and then rebuilding our nation. As each nation in the world, they're going to rebuild themselves. That's the statue of Daniel. Iron does not mix with clay. So it is imperative to maintaining this government as it is, because then the plan is maintaining what we have, while then China takes over, and they were our protege during the time of the Second World War. They never waged the war of invasion. They are then this trade system bringing peace, but not because of itself, but because Yahweh has determined. Because His cities are going to be rebuilt, and the city then later, Jerusalem, is going to be rebuilt as per the design from the time of Moses.